Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Now, for the video that I have always dreamed of making, this is Meet My Baby, and this is my birth story video. I'm so excited to be sitting down and doing this. Obviously, since I last saw you guys in my last video, a lot has changed. I think the last one was a pregnancy update, and here we are with my sweet baby. And I also got a haircut. But I wanted to just start this off by introducing you to my daughter. This is Nova. She is a little over 2 weeks old, and she is the best thing that's ever happened to us. We are just so in love with her. So because I have a newborn with me, I'm just gonna hop right into sharing my birth story with you guys, and hopefully we can manage through this with her nice and content. So before I start though, I did want to say that I had an interesting experience overall, and so what I have decided to do from the very beginning, I'm actually separating my birth story with my afterbirth. I'm putting those as two different things, two different videos, two different experiences, and that's just for my own sake and how I'm coping with kind of the craziness that went on. Because really, my birth story, like, there was a lot that went differently, that went crazy and stuff like that, but it still was such a magical thing, and it's something that I really cherish and I love. And then my afterbirth was very traumatic and difficult. So by separating those two, my intention is that I can still really think about my birth story and her birth as something magical and really great, and then the traumatic stuff is kind of separate and not really in the focal point. So labor started for me on March 25th, and she was born March 26th. So at about 10 in the morning, I would say, on March 25th, I started having some contractions, and they weren't very close together, and they weren't very strong. And so I knew that it was probably just early labor or something like that. So I didn't get too excited. But as a couple hours went on, they did start to kind of seem like they were getting closer together, and they definitely had more of a pattern. So I did text Caleb and I asked him to come home, just because, you know, first time going through this, I just wanted him here. I was a little nervous and everything. So he did come home, and then I had actually made a acupuncture appointment. So we went out and did my acupuncture. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to say, I was 40 weeks one day on March 25th. My due date was March 24th. So I was definitely feeling done being pregnant, but I definitely wasn't super overdue or anything. So we went to the acupuncture appointment and did that kind of with the intention of hoping to induce labor. And that was really good, nice and relaxing. I had lots of good contractions during that, and I was getting excited. After that, we went and got some food, got some lunch, and then went for a walk. And I hoped that that would like really set me into more active labor. And then we went home, and then unfortunately it kind of fizzled away, the contractions kind of stopped. So I was really bummed out and disappointed. So then we just kind of rested, and I watched a movie and stuff like that. And then around like 9:30 p.m., I started getting contractions again. And they were definitely stronger, and they were getting pretty close together. So they became, they started right away off at 3 minutes apart around. And that was crazy for me, because I just expected that, you know, they would start like further apart and slowly get closer and closer. But to start your labor like right away at 3 minutes apart was a little intense. And then very quickly they became 1 minute apart. Like, I only had the 3 minutes apart for a little while, and then then they were 1 minute apart and getting stronger. So I knew then that I was in active labor and that the baby was going to be coming. I definitely felt like I was going to be in it for a long time. You know, being a first-time mom and everything, I just kind of assumed that. So I knew it was going to be a long night. But I did end up calling the doula and midwife at around 1 a.m. Well, Caleb called them. I was not in the mood to be on the phone, really. And we talked with the midwife. She said to, you know, keep going, and that to call her when things got more intense. And then the doula just, she was tell her when things got more intense. So then shortly after, I decided to go into the bath and try to use like the water to help me. At this point, my contractions were really close together and they were starting to get pretty intense and painful. And so I was trying my best to like use all my techniques to cope and stuff, but it's definitely harder to do in the moment than it is when you're like planning this. So the bath was nice. It was kind of short-lived though, because honestly, I wasn't getting very comfortable in the water. My tub isn't like super deep, so I was getting kind of antsy to get out again. And at this point we had called the doula again and asked her to come, and she arrived not too long after, and she was a huge help from then on out, because I was doing all right with the contractions, but I definitely needed her like support and her ability to like keep me focused. Caleb was doing an awesome job this whole time of like helping me with breathing and like keeping me calm and stuff, but having both of them there was like really helpful. So then not too long after that, we called the midwife again and asked her to come check me, because I felt like things were really moving along. So she came, and I think I was 2 centimeters at that point. So of course I was really bummed out, because it felt like I should have been way further. And so she went home and was gonna get some more rest, and the doula stayed and we just labored. So I tried like every position. It was actually really good. I used the exercise ball. I like leaned up against the counter, against the couch, against the bed. Like I was doing all kinds of different positions and moving a lot and frequently. So that was really good. And I was using lots of techniques like with my breathing and stuff, and using those low like sounds to help with the contractions as well. I also had a TENS machine, and so that is this, it's essentially this like a little electric current machine, and you put these like pads on your back and you can press the button when you feel a contraction coming, and it sends this current, and it just kind of like not vibrates, but it just has like a current on your back, and it kind of distracts you from the pain in the front, and it kind of makes you focus on the current. So essentially it's like a pain management technique. It doesn't take the pain away, but it just is like something that changes your focus, and helped me get through them a lot. So I kept that on for quite a long time, actually, like hours and hours, because I found it was really helpful. So then at like 4 a.m. or so, I was working with the doula. We were going through the contractions, and so Caleb got to have a little nap. I think it was only like 20 minutes though, because things were getting more intense for me. For pretty much the majority of my labor through the night, I had these contractions that were really crazy. So like I said, that they started really close together and they kind of didn't really let up. And so what I was having was I was getting these contractions that would double and triple even. So when you normally would have a contraction, then you'd have like a 1 minute break, and then you'd have a contraction. I wasn't even getting the 1 minute break. I was getting contraction, 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 then maybe a like 30-second break, and then contraction, contraction, contraction. So it was honestly really intense, and I felt like I was just crumbling. For so long, I felt like I was really handling them well, and I was coping really well. I was doing the breathing, I was getting through them, I wasn't like spiraling out of control or anything. I felt like really good, like I was doing such a good job. But then once they started to double and triple, I was like exhausted. I just couldn't catch my breath. I just couldn't like get through them, because as you can imagine, having them over and over and over and not getting a break was like really tiring. So that's kind of when I started to feel like really down, and just not like I was managing. And so around like 4:30, I think I started asking to go to the hospital. I started like begging. I was like, please, can we go? And so Caleb and my doula, like our plan was that if I was asking, they were going to, try to not talk me out of it, because it's ultimately my decision, but to remind me of what my plan was, because I had hoped to go unmedicated. And so, they're talking to me and they're saying like, you're doing such a great job right now, and like giving me all this encouragement. And we ended up making like little time slot plans. So she was like, okay, let's get to 5 o'clock. and then we'll talk about it. Let's get to 6 o'clock and then we'll talk about it. And so that worked really well because I was able to be like, okay. And then I just kind of bared down, and it made the time seem like less crazy because I could like see, okay, half an hour from now I can do that. Whereas thinking about like from the birth, which could have been hours and hours and hours, that was just too much to handle. So then like 5 a.m. we go downstairs, laboring in the kitchen, on the couch, all around, trying to just do anything and everything to get through. And then around 6:15 we called the midwife again, asked her to come check, and she came, and about, I think it was like an hour later, like 7 o'clock-ish, that's when I was checked, and I was only at 4 centimeters. And so I was super discouraged because, like I said, those doubling and tripling contractions just were so much to handle. And I just felt like defeated. I was like, how on earth am I going to do this all day tomorrow? Like, how am I going to do this all day long? I just didn't know how I was going to manage because I was so tired. It wasn't so much the pain or the contractions themselves. It was just not getting a break that was really wearing me down. And of course, but the fact that I was only at 4 centimeters meant that the contractions were going to get stronger and were going to get more intense in order for them to actually dilate me. So that was really like, it was just really stressful for me, I think, at that point, because I'd already been laboring all night, and then I had even had a bunch of contractions the day before. I've already been up for 24 hours, everything. So it was a lot. So that's when I kind of looked Caleb in the eyes and I said, I need help. I just said, I can't quite do this on my own. I need some help from the hospital. I want to go to the hospital. I probably want to get an epidural. I just need something to give me relief because I'm not going to be able to do this. And that was really hard for me because I really didn't want that route. Personally, I had wanted to go unmedicated. And I knew all along, and it was always in my plan, that if things got, too difficult, that I would go to the hospital and I would be fine with it. So it wasn't so much that I was like upset. It was just kind of like, dang, I really thought I could do it, and here we are, and I feel kind of bad, but it's okay, and the pain is so much that I don't even care anymore. Let's just get going. So around 8 a.m. we left the house and went to the hospital, and so all of us kind of took our own cars, and well, Caleb and I took a car together, but like the doula and midwife took their own cars, and we all met at the hospital. And the drive, let me tell you guys, the drive to the hospital was torture. Oh my goodness. It was a 40-minute drive. I did not get 1 single second of a break in between contractions. They went on. So they just kept going the whole drive. And that mixed with bumps in the road and everything was just like, I was ready to just break down. I was just mortified. But we finally got to the hospital. I made my way through the hospital, through the elevator and stuff, having to stop like so frequently to try and like deal with the contractions. I still had the TENS machine on at this point too. Thankfully we got into the room really fast. That was really great because my midwife got there before us. She was able to like get everything figured out, and then I just got in. We called the anesthesiologist and he was coming pretty soon. I was just dealing with the pain, trying not to like spiral out of control when we were in the hospital, and just trying to keep my cool. I kept thinking like, okay, relief is coming. I will be okay. Just get through this one. So anyways, and then finally the epidural came, and I got my IV in, I got my epidural in, and that was something I was really scared for such a long time, was the actual needle, like the actual epidural. I was like worried about that one for a few things, like just how giant the needle is it going to give me any like side effects later on, is he going to do a good job and I'm going to be safe because it's so close to like all this important stuff back there. But when you're in the moment and you're dealing with the contractions, it doesn't even matter. You're just like, yep, go. I'm good. Get it on, buddy. You don't even care about the needle size or anything. You're just ready for it. So that was interesting to see like my perspective change. So I got the epidural, and it happened, well, it like went into effect really quickly. I think it was only like 10, 15 minutes before I was like, oh, finally. The epidural was at about 10 o'clock. And so then we just hung out there for a little while. And around 10:45, I have all the, Caleb took notes like as we were going with the times so that we could properly remember. So about 10:45, the midwife checked me again. I was 90% effaced and 6 centimeters dilated. So that was good. At least like some progress had happened. And so I was excited about that. But I was also, you know, kind of bummed because 6 centimeters still meant that there was 4 more to go. Sorry, she is like a furnace. I'm just heating up. So then the plan was just for me to rest, try to get some rest and chill out, let my body kind of do its thing, and dilate some more. So I ended up getting actually a walking epidural. And so if you don't know what that is, it's essentially you still feel your legs and you can still move them. And so I was even able, like with the help of everybody, I was even able to get up and like walk to the bathroom and try to use the bathroom. I couldn't use the bathroom. I needed to get a catheter. But I was able to like shimmy my way over. So it was kind of cool because I didn't want to be just like a total lump on a log. I wanted to be able to try different positions and stuff. So this epidural actually allowed me to do that. And it was really, I really liked it. So in the birth log, you'll see that I was like leaned up against the back of the bed, and I was doing all kinds of things to try and like help, you know, get baby girl's head down more and dilate more. So I really liked that that was the case for me, but I wasn't exactly dilating very quickly. So at around 1 o'clock, the midwife decided to break my water in the hopes that that would help me dilate more. At that point, I was around 7 or 8 centimeters dilated, and we were hoping that it would just be what took to get me to 10. But unfortunately, after a little while, we realized that it wasn't really quite working, and I needed a little bit more help. Often when you get an epidural, you can sometimes become too relaxed, and then your contractions kind of fizzle out a little bit and aren't as strong. So I needed just like a little something to help me keep going so that I didn't just stall. And that's when I got a little bit of oxytocin or Pitocin in my IV. And the midwife kept saying, she's like, we're just gonna give you a little sniff. And I thought that was funny because there's a huge like scale of how much you can get, and for me I was like on this low end. I just needed like a little bit in my system to just kick me back up again. So we did that, and it worked really effectively, and I was able to finally dilate all the way. So it wasn't until 6 o'clock that 6 p.m. that I was fully dilated and ready to start pushing. So my contractions started, technically early labor started the day before at like 10 a.m. and then they were like effective contractions that night at like 9 p.m. So from like 9 p.m. to 6 p.m. the next day was like my labor. And then from 6 p.m. I started pushing, and it took a long time. It was a long pushing sesh, that's for sure, because I didn't have her. She wasn't born until 8:39 p.m. So that was like 2 hours, 40 minutes of pushing, which is crazy. But it didn't feel that long to me because we would push with the contraction, right? And then I'd have a break, and we were just kind of like all having this like grand old time at the hospital. We were just joking with each other, laughing, having fun, and like just, it was a really good atmosphere. And that's when my second midwife came, because she comes when it's pushing time, so that one can be kind of tending to me and then one can be tending to the baby. So I had my whole team there, and it was all the people that I really trusted and I really liked and I got along with really well. And we were all just like meshing, and it was just really fun, honestly. It sounds weird, but I had a lot of fun during like that period of my labor and even pushing. One thing that was funny is as I was taking a deep breath to push, I got a lot of like air trapped in my system, and so I kept having to like belch and hiccup and feeling like I was going to throw up like all the time. And so it was kind of hilarious and very comical because I just was like burping up a storm the whole time. So I got everybody laughing. So yeah, anyways, my point is that the pushing period was really long, like time-wise, but it didn't feel that long because it wasn't like terrible or anything. We were like having a good time. But as we were getting further and further into the pushing, when I don't know what time it was or at all, but we started noticing that Nova's heart rate was starting to decelerate just a little bit. It's normal to have that because they're being, you know, they're contractions and they're being pushed up against in your pelvis and stuff. But it was just a little more than the midwife wanted. So she literally looked at me and she said, Ayla, Nova is in a squishy spot right now. We need to get her out. And I think that like resonated with me, and I was like, okay, this isn't fun and games anymore. Like, I need to get my baby out because 1, I want her to be safe. 2, I want to have a vaginal birth and I don't want anything to cause me to, you know, be wheeled off to C-section. So I got that power within me or whatever, and they were all so encouraging. They were like calling me a warrior the whole time, telling me how awesome I was and how strong I was, and like really feeding with me with all this positive feedback. It was really cool. And so yeah, so that little like pep talk was what I needed, and I really just hunkered down and I just got her out. And so it definitely wasn't fast. It took a few tries for sure, but I was able to get her out. I know from hearing about it later that it was kind of tricky getting her out, and I think she even had her like hand slightly up, and so that was part of why I was having such a hard time, is because she was kind of like not in the best way. But I finally got her out, and if you saw the birth vlog, which I will definitely link, you have to go see it. It was the most emotional moment of our lives. We sobbed and cried our eyes out, and were just such a beautiful mess. And she came out perfect as can be. Just the cutest little thing, her little button nose. I just couldn't even believe my life that this was real. I was in shock. I was just sobbing my eyes out. I just was so happy and so thankful for everybody's help, and just like that I got her there safely was just crazy and so good. And my husband Caleb was crying too, and it was just this beautiful like moment. I think we had like 15 minutes of just her on my chest, us crying together, us like kissing and looking at her, and he got to cut the cord, and just all the like special moments that come with birthing a child and birthing your first child. So the whole labor was intense and crazy for me, and really hard, and probably harder than I thought it would be. But then the actual birth and that little bit of time, like the labor is so long, but then the 15 minutes of getting your baby out and just loving her for like that time was just incredible, and it made everything else melt away and disappear. I couldn't have cared that we were in the hospital and our plans had changed. I couldn't have cared that the contractions were beating me up. I didn't care about any of it. I just cared that she was here and that she was our daughter, and she was, yeah, the dream that we had always dreamed of for 5.5 years had actually come true, and it was just so surreal and so beautiful. So then at this point is when things kind of went awry and things kind of went scary. And so, yeah, I'm going to explain that in this next video because it's a whole other story and a whole other video. And like I said, I want to separate these experiences so that I can look back on my birth and still feel all of those warm, amazing feelings that I felt without it being tainted by the afterbirth and the story of that. So that's where I'm going to leave this video. And I stop recording and just literally hit record again and continue the next one. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments below a little bit about your birth story. Was it exactly how you planned? Was it completely different? Was a little of both? But in the end, like I said, I am just so pleased with everything because it brought me my sweetheart, and that's all I could ask for. I really hope I didn't forget anything because it was a whirlwind and it was crazy. So thank you guys so much for watching and for coming along this journey. I'm so excited to be starting all of these new videos with my sweet baby, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.